Travis Wayne Goodsell. Welcome to all of you who are of the newest wave of exodus from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Thank you for your bravery and your courage. And the most likely scenario, as the news says that the church is not going to be giving Utah the membership stats for the Utah Mormons because the coronavirus is skewing up the accurate numbers. Why wasn't this for last year? They still did numbers last year. And so, most likely you're a part of that wave of Mormons who have left, just stopped going because of that. And good for you. And so now you're probably in limbo, pondering what your life should now proceed as, whether you should become Christian, whether you should seek out other ex-Mormons for consolation and community, or just giving up on religion altogether. And if you're going to browse YouTube, depending on your interest, there's several genres of ex-Mormonism for you, and I'm going to go over them for you. The first category is the dangerous one, and I'm not going to mention him by name, but you're most likely going to fall into his trap anyway. He's a psychologist. It's an anti-science field. Psychologists use fallacy to justify their job in luring people in as their clients. But you're going to find them anyway, and you're going to get trapped. I just hope and urge you not to fall for the trap, because it's very alluring with some of the special celebrities that get on that channel. I hope you can resist. The popular ones, the popular ex-Mormon channels, are Molex, Zelf on the Shelf, and that's it that I'm aware of. Molex is good for talking about her experiences in the Mormon Church, but I wouldn't recommend it for trying to get an accurate understanding of Mormonism. Zelf on the Shelf are more into reporting on reports of exposing of church history lies. But again, they're not experts in the field. That's what they cover. So they're like the Tanners in that sense, but they're more entertaining and more fun and enjoyable. And so, yeah, it's a couple. If you want more intellectual thought critique on the Mormon Church, Thinker of Thoughts, a channel called M. That's it, just M. And LDS Archiver. It's all one word. And I think that's what I can remember for that category. Only Thinker of Thoughts gives commentary occasionally. They're pretty much quoting Mormon clips and videos. LDS Archiver is awesome for the old stuff, the rare, hard to find Mormon videos. So it's a great collection for your racism, your sexism, your bigotry, and your overall hatred. The ones that are neglected by YouTube, you have Dodger Dave. I haven't heard from him in a while. Hope he's doing okay. Paul Adams. Haven't heard from him in a while. Hope he's doing okay. But with Paul Adams, you got to be careful. There's another Paul Adams, or at least more other Paul Adamses. So you got to make sure LDS Critic is in your search for him. And again, Paul Adams is former bishop. Also, there was Bishop Baker. I can't remember his first name, but he left the church, had a YouTube channel trying to reason with Mormons to leave the church, pointing out the gospel topic essays, as Paul Adams also did. And he then joined Christianity, and then disappointed them by joining a Jewish organization. I don't think it was just Jews. There's differences, just like in Christianity. It wasn't Jewish mysticism like Madonna did, or Joseph Smith Sr. Yes. We're getting to me last. You found me first, but first shall be last. Those are the neglected ones. Random Muse also. I don't see him doing much in the way of videos lately, but his videos should still be available. Those who aren't Mormon, who do critical videos of the church, it's me, Jessie, hands down. She sort of gave up now. She's now pursuing, last I saw, she was interviewing an ex-Mormon. But she started getting into her own religion, as her pastor and father were very concerned. She was spending so much focus on the Mormon church, even though it was critical. So, but her old stuff is still awesome, because it's a person not affiliated with the Mormons who was approached by the missionaries, and so she started to do research into the Mormon church and does videos on what she found. And if you read through the comments, you'll see all the Mormons trying to argue and fight and contend and show their hate. And I'm sure you've already seen the Mormon apologetic videos about her. God. So, yeah. There's a reason why everybody leaves the Mormon church. And it's a different one for everybody, but nonetheless, it's all from the same root cause. And And so then there's me. Born and raised Mormon, outside of Utah, Southern California with Dodger Dave. Not with him, but in Southern California. I've moved around as a kid, and so I never got to establish any solid friendships. But in Southern California, there were born-again Christians back in the 80s that were on the rise, and they had watched Godmaker's video, and I was defenseless. You know, I only had church and seminary and conference that we had to go to the stake center to watch. And when I was in primary, it was on the Wednesdays. My family, my parents, had the Mormon library. It was like a whole wall, a shelving unit of books from the Mormon Church, including the Journal of Discourses and the works of Joseph Fielding Smith Jr., and doctrinal history of the church, and all that stuff. And so I didn't get to all of that, but it was available for me to peruse, and learned about the King Follett Discourse, and didn't understand it because there was Hebrew in it. The church has taken out the Hebrew because there was an error, as I later found out. And so I got my Eagle Scout, did all the road shows, got to do 3 because my parents moved for my 8th grade year. And so the different stakes held their road shows at different years. And so I got to participate in 3. Yay. And so I was still a bright straight A student, except for one report on Idaho, and Mrs. Fiskin refused to give me anything higher than a C, as my parents had to argue with her. She gave me an F, my first F ever. It crushed me. I had no interest in school after that, but I still graduated with honors. So I went to Rick's, mission to New York, New York. Came back to Rick's. Growing up in Mormon household, my parents were both returned missionaries, and very strict, very controlling, very take away your agency because it's God's plan of eternal happiness. And so I wanted to get away from them as quick as possible. And since they were paying for it, yay! So going back to Rick's, Mormon life and Mormon thinking screws me up big time. Many things would have been done differently had I not been born Mormon, and so I can't blame myself on that. And married a half-bred American, half Canadian. She took me up to Canada where they hand out free babies. And they give you money for the babies. And then they give you money for being poor, because I didn't become a citizen. I was just married to a half Canadian. And so I had to find part-time jobs that would pay in check or cash. And so that was an adventure. We ended up having 3 kids. I only saw 2 of them because the Mormon Church causes lots of divorces. And it was because of my pursuit of Joseph Smith's translation work from the King Follett Discourse in Hebrew and the Book of Abraham with the papyri. And so I pursued that course in my education, pursued how to do it scientifically, and found out Joseph Smith actually is a translator. That's what makes me different from all the rest and from Mormons, is because I fully support Joseph Smith, but not Brigham Young. And that's because since 2017, when the bishop at that time extorted my membership by trying to force me to stop publishing the ancient languages showing that Joseph Smith was a translator, I said, I just stopped. Nobody's going to extort me. And there's an attempt to try to have me assassinated using that against me currently. So yes, the Mormons and the prophets have been ordering and paying for my assassination, and they keep failing. So we are now in the latest one right now. My deadline is December 10th. So we'll see what happens. Everybody's going silent right now because I exposed it. And so my channel, I have others. If you go to the home page, you'll see, depending on which channel you're on, you'll see 2 others. The Restoration of Joseph Smith's Church of Christ is a new one, and so there's not as many videos on that one. But the Travis Wayne Goodsell was the original one, and if you go back and start from the beginning, you'll see the evolution 50 billion years later of my discoveries in researching church history, and we're in the latter days, because the prophets aren't going to tell you. I mean, Nelson came out in October conference to say, yes, we're in the latter days, but he didn't bother to reveal the signs in the heavens to support it. He just left it blank, throwing out the teaser to keep Mormons lured in. He had no interest in revealing signs to Mormons because of what they mean. That was my education too. And so, having done church history research, you have Gerald and Sandra Tanner, as I talked about, Zelf on the Shelf couple, who report what has been learned, but the reports have all been by different people about different time periods, events, and persons. And I'm the first one who's actually put all the pieces together to find out what actually happened. And so I'm church history breaking news. And I'll even go over to demonstrate it in my videos, how it's done, and have multiple videos in which I'm breaking live right there on the video along with you, finding out some new information, tying it together in the big picture. And so lots of British humor, dry, boring, Monty Python style. I'll put you to sleep if you listen long enough. So don't listen while you drive. Listen to me while you're in bed. Going to sleep for the night. Or the morning if you work at night. Yeah, I will occasionally, well, often, throw in my knowledge of the ancient languages. Paleo-Hebrew, Egyptian, and others, Greek. Teaching how to decipher and translate, as well as show how it is applied to Scripture. And so, you have your options, and you're going to do what you're going to do, I guess, aren't you? Just understand that if you're going through a faith crisis, it's because the church didn't allow you to have knowledge. Because if you had knowledge, you wouldn't go through a faith crisis. You'd knowingly recognize the church was wrong and just leave, like I did. But Mormons will attack you, and that's why you sort of just are trying to hide. I understand. Knowledge is kind of essential. It gives you powers against the Mormons and their abuse. I recommend learning the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith history. It's the greatest weapon against Mormons. They can't defend against it. So, I mean, case in point, I did a video this morning talking about a Mormon apologist who did a video about who killed Joseph Smith. It's the wrong word. He was assassinated, murdered. And so he uses anti-Mormon to describe us as critics. And well, that's actually Paul that used anti-Mormon, but they do it in their other videos. So, yeah, I also help instruct you on how to go over the internet search for the truth about the church, because there's a lot of misinformation that the church has put on there, on Wikipedia and other sites, to cause confusion and distract away from the actual church history. And unfortunately, the ex-Mormon channels get caught up on those. And so, yeah, you'll get exclusive material from me and nowhere else. I don't do interviews. I will be interviewed if terrorists don't cyber attack me and shut down my internet on the morning I was supposed to be interviewed. And they're already attacking me to prevent me from the next attempt to interview me. I'm surprised he's even still trying, but he recognizes the information I have is something his audience wants. And he's not an ex-Mormon, not Mormon, nothing to do with the Mormon Church. So, alright, that's it. Welcome. Hope you find your place.